Now that I have finished my first playthrough of the Elden Rings Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, it's time to take a look back at what were some of my favourite bosses that From Software dished us up. As always with these sorts of lists, they are just my own opinion, and will be ordered by my own personal preference. So let's dive straight in. Number 12. Meteor Mother of Fingers was a nice surprise of a boss fight for me, as at this point in my playthrough I thought I had discovered all the bosses that were available. The mystery around how to access this fight was a nice little challenge, and descending into this area really added to the anticipation for what would come. This boss is a perfect example of From Software's weird and wonderful boss design, and visually ticks every box. While the boss does have a somewhat mixed bag of attacks from body slams, arm hits, eyeball lasers and vortexes, it did feel a little clunky, and unfortunately for my playthrough, I happened to kill the boss before it was able to truly unleash its second phase's laser light show. Number 11. The Putrescent Knight boss fight is objectively fantastic. I love the art design of both the arena and the boss itself. It was a chef's kiss of visual stimulation. But for me, and this is very much so a me problem, I could not figure out this boss's second phase. The first phase I had down to a T, every move and combo perfectly mastered. But the second it would start firing blue fire across the area, I was done. And in the end, I just got lucky, thankfully. Overall, this boss has a very satisfying combination of moves, from its boomerang style range attack to high speed charges from both itself and its horse. This fight was extremely challenging, and not to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. Number 10. Right from the get-go, I stumbled upon the perfect strat for Commander Gaius, a honka-chonka armor-clad ball-riding foe that would charge me into oblivion. Utilising the fingerprint shield, I very quickly managed to devise a strat to tank his charges, and then punish him when the time allowed, making this a slow but fun endurance boss fight. From a visual perspective, both the arena and boss were relatively average, but having these average tones really made the purple gravity magic that Gaius uses really pop, so I actually thought it worked really well in contrast. Other than his fast charge, Gaius utilised a bunch of other attacks that were very easy to counter, from his head slams to his gravity attacks. Overall, I really enjoyed this fight, as it required me to be very precise with my counter attacks. Number 9. Now I know I would get a fair amount of hate for this one, but for me, the promised consort Radahn was just too much. And yes, you can say just get good all you like, but hear me out. I 100% agree that the final boss of the DLC, which are renowned for being the hardest content From Software dishes out, would and should be pretty damn difficult, and it should be. Radahn's first phase was pretty damn perfect, and it felt like the ultimate challenge in learning moves, waiting for the right opportunity that wouldn't end up in me being counterattacked, and patience, patience, patience. His phase 2, however, it was just too much for me. It was visually overwhelming to the point where I couldn't even see what moves were happening to even attempt to learn them, which made this fight last 19 hours and just under 500 attempts. Visually, the boss fight is stunning. The arena, the boss itself, I love it. As a spectator, the madness of phase 2 is just amazing to observe. Even now, weeks after completing the boss, I have no want to revisit it due to its phase 2, which I find a shame. I love Radahn being brought back and fighting him in his prime. He has a great variation in attacks, when you can see them, and there is no dispute that Radahn is by far the hardest boss From Software has ever cooked. But for me, I like my bosses a little more medium rare. Number 8. Messmer the Impaler is the boss everyone was waiting for, and while he didn't end up being the final boss as many expected, he was a fantastic fight. Personally, I don't fare well against the faster humanoid bosses, never have, never will, and Messmer was very much at the top end of what I personally find fun. I love the challenge, but it still needs to be fun, and there were definitely times in the Messmer fight where I just felt like I was a fish in a barrel being pummeled again and again by Messmer's various fiery combos. Visually, Messmer is perfect. He has the most personality of all the DLC bosses, and mastering the perfect run to take him down felt so satisfying, even more so than with defeating Radahn for me. Fighting Messmer really does put you under a lot of pressure to be perfect, as time and time again, a simple mistake would end in a very quick death. Number 7. At first, I really wasn't a fan of Midra, Lord of the Frenzied Flame. I love the art design of the boss, and visually, it's up there as one of my favourite bosses. The start of the encounter with Midra is a complete troll, and after taking him down, we are soon plunged into the fight for real. My first batch of attempts at Midra, I was fighting him completely wrong, trying to block attacks and counter them instead of using full-on dodging. This caused me quite a bit of frustration. Then, coming back to the fight with a new plan and a fresh head on me, it made the world of difference, and I finally started to enjoy the fight. His variety of sweeping frenzy, upward fire, swing and barbed thrust attacks to name a few, made this fight really fun to learn. While the attacks were quick and the combos deadly, I felt like this fight gave plenty of time and opportunities to counter them. Some of the frenzy attacks are difficult to counter, and I found myself on many occasions running away from these for fear of succumbing to the madness. That being said, Midra is definitely up there as one of From Software's most stunning boss fights. Number 6. So, the Divine Beast Dancing Lion. Not only do we face this boss almost at the start of the DLC, but you then get to meet him again later on with some Basilisk friends. Yippee! Initially, I struggled so much with the first encounter with the Divine Dancing Lion. It was a very humbling experience, as this was one of the first bosses I encountered, and boy did I get my ass handed to me. Visually, the boss is beautiful. Having such a varied combination of spinning breath attacks, aerial twists, backflips and ground slams during phase 1 savagely overwhelmed me as beautiful as it was. And then for its phase 2 to unleash a whole variety of elemental storms was just too much for me to handle so early on in the DLC. Coming back to the fight later on with a few more Erdtree blessings on my belt, and I absolutely destroyed this boss. Then encountering him near the end of the game felt like a nice little challenge, even if you do also have to deal with some basilisks. Having Torrent on this second fight though, and a more open arena, made this second encounter super fun. Number 5. When I first found Bale the Dread, I had one try and then noped the hell out of there. It wasn't until much later in the DLC that I decided to go back and take him on, and what an epically cinematic fight this was. For me, I love a good show. The more visually stunning the better, and Bale did not disappoint. Granted, yes, I used the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana, which makes any dragon fight a cakewalk with its special attack. Especially as I was going in summonless, I figure I'd need all the help I could get. I love a Honka Chonka monster fight. That is my go-to boss type from all of Soulsborne, and Bale felt like the perfect culmination of all the Honka Chonka boss fights From Software have ever delivered. After a few attempts, I felt myself in perfect harmony with his variety of attacks. From his biting attack to his sweeping lightning breath, even to his dive bombing attack. The whole fight felt like a perfect dance of attacks and counterattacks, and this is a fight I can't wait to go back to and experience all over again. Number 4. Okay, hear me out. Yes, Jorai Elder Inquisitor may not be the most difficult boss the DLC has to offer, and yes, I did win it on my first attempt, but I loved every minute of it. From the second I entered the arena, which given how cluttered it was would normally be a nightmare for me, soon turned into a great challenge when Jorai begins summoning all of his friends. After taking some of them on, I soon decided it was time to just focus on the main man himself, and this was a great little challenge given how many friends he summons in to get in the way. I've always thought Elden Ring's incantations were visually stunning, and this fight's contrast of danky swamp graveyard against the glowing incantations sweeping the area were just beautiful to watch, and I was genuinely gutted when the fight finished as quick as it did. Number 3. R'hllana Twin Moon Knight is the first major roadblock that most will face during their journey through the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, and what an absolutely fantastic, visually stunning, edge-of-your-seat boss fight this is. Going up against R'hllana feels very old school and reminiscent of the Dark Souls boss fights like Fume Knight, Artorias and Pontiff. If the Divine Beast boss didn't humble you, then R'hllana definitely will. With her dual-wielding swords that give you barely any safe space to operate in, her quick moveset and large variety of attacks from spin slashes, quick stabs, 3 attack combos, hell, even 6 attack combos, give you a lot to think about. And then she pulls out the dual magic and fire swords, which again visually are just a beauty to behold, but a nightmare to be up against. Then, if you're not careful and she hits you with her Twin Moon attack before you can jump out the way, it is most certainly a guaranteed death to go on your counter. Overall, R'hllana is both visually, mechanically, and iconically an awesome boss fight. And she definitely tested me to my limits, which, for such an early boss in the DLC, gave me a lot to worry about. Number 2. Every now and then you encounter a boss that feels just right. It doesn't need to be easy or difficult, but something about it just resonates with you. And for me, that is none other than Romina Saint of the Bud. Visually, this boss almost hypnotized me from the very second I entered the arena. The contrast of the rot-laden arena to the beauty of her butterfly bomb attacks that are both beautiful and deadly just works perfectly together. From a mechanical perspective, every single attack of hers was extremely well telegraphed. Each jump, roll, slam gave me the perfect tell in order to dodge and counter it in time. This fight almost felt like I was playing it while seeing The Matrix. I just clicked with it immediately. This may seem like a very strange compliment to give this fight, but for me it felt very Dark Souls 2, which I love. It felt dark and dingy, yet done in such a beautiful way. I have literally zero negative things to say about this fight. Even dealing with the rot build-up at no point felt like something I needed to worry about. Hats off to From Software. In a game where bosses like Radahn and Mezba get so much affection, I really didn't think there would be a boss like this that would resonate so much with me. Number 1. And finally, my personal favourite boss of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is none other than the Erdtree Avatar. Yep, you heard me right. This is such a fun and quirky boss fight. I just love everything about it. I really wasn't expecting a boss fight when I was exploring the area, so to find a deadly sunflower no less was just an amazing experience. The design of the boss just exudes Soulsborne in every way, with its withered, thorny yet simple design is just perfect, and to make this particular boss fight have 3 phases is very unexpected. Overall, the fight is a relatively easy one, but by having fairly simple moves to counter like its basic sweeps, projectiles and repeating charge attacks have plenty of tells. This was another fight that just felt right. It felt fun. It was the type of crazy wacky boss that I like to see in a From Software game, even if it does have a massive AoE explosion to run away from. And any boss fight where I get to do regular visceral attacks gets the seal of approval from me. I love a challenging boss, I really do. I enjoy that feeling of achievement when I've been fighting a boss for hours and finally work out its inner workings. But sometimes I need a boss just like this, where I can have some pure, unadulterated, soulsy fun. And for now, that's it. Let me know in the comment section below what your favourite boss of the DLC is, and which one you just couldn't stand. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Elden Ring content.